You're listening to The Tom Daniel Show, and I'm your host, Tom Daniel. Today I want to talk about hippos in Louisiana. No, I'm not being culturally or socially insensitive. I'm talking about the actual hippopotamus. What does that have to do with Louisiana? Well, it's just another example of me looking up one thing and getting sidetracked by something a lot more interesting. In America, there are a lot of places you can go that make you feel like you're in a foreign country. Certain areas of Miami, Phoenix, San Francisco immediately come to mind, and you might feel like you need a passport just to go there. However, I firmly believe that whenever I travel to some parts of Louisiana, I feel like I've left the planet entirely. Louisiana is the ultimate faux alien experience. For example, if you ever go to a football game at Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, you'll be surrounded by people speaking French. It's not because they took French in high school or something. It's because they speak French. Hearing a whole section of drunks yelling for somebody's head to be torn off in French defies belief. Louisiana has people, plants, and creatures that also defy belief, and they're always pushing the envelope. Now, most people think of Louisiana and they picture Mardi Gras or the food, the music, the whole vibrant scene. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll find history is full of these strange and unbelievable moments in Louisiana. There is truly no place on earth like it. Remember the rodents of unusual size in the fire swamp of the Princess Bride? Well, they actually have them in Louisiana. They're called nutrias, and they're basically rats about half the size of a full-grown beaver. Every time I see the word nutria, I think it's a brand name for a new artificial sweetener like stevia or something. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, as the story goes, nutrias were brought to Louisiana in the 1930s by E. A. McElhenney, who was the son of the guy that invented Tabasco sauce. Now, his plan was to keep them in captivity on Avery Island in Louisiana and breed them for fur. Now, at this point, the story gets confusing because it keeps changing. Either the rats unintentionally escaped into Vermilion Bay during a storm, or McElhenney let them out on purpose for them to eat some highly invasive vegetation. At the time it happened, McElhenney boasted and bragged that he was the first person in Louisiana to release nutrias into the wild. Now later, when they multiplied into ridiculously destructive hordes, he kind of rolled back that story just a little bit. However, while it would be one thing to see wild nutrias slumbering beside the road in Lafayette, Louisiana, imagine driving to a raging Cajun football game and seeing wild African hippos grazing right there in the Vermilion River. Well, it came to within an eyelash of actually happening in 1910. Way back at the 1884 World's Fair held in New Orleans, the Japanese delegation presented a gift of water hyacinths to the state of Louisiana, and that started the whole ball rolling. Water hyacinths aren't true hyacinths like you might see pop up in your garden in early spring alongside the tulips, but they do have a purple bloom that resembles a hyacinth. Now, if you've ever seen a koi pond in somebody's yard, you might have seen some. Water hyacinths float like jellyfish and multiply worse than rabbits. They're basically born pregnant, and they can quickly choke and clog an unsuspecting waterway. They are beautiful in a controlled water garden. They are dangerously invasive in the wild. They're nearly indestructible. Now, since water hyacinths actually prefer hot, humid, boggy conditions, nobody in Louisiana knew what they were in for. In less than 20 years, the swamps, bayous, inlets, rivers, bays of Louisiana were almost unnavigable due to the explosion of water hyacinths, and there was nothing they could do to get rid of them. The Army even tried pouring oil on them and setting the swamps on fire to burn them out. But as it turns out, their scattered seeds can survive for almost 30 years. The state of Louisiana needed a solution, and they needed it fast. That's when a U.S. congressman from Louisiana named Robert F. Broussard came to the rescue with a couple of unusual partners and an ingenious plan: hippopotamus ranching. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show. We'll be right back.
Qu'est-ce que tu attends? The Tom Daniels Show. Qu'est-ce que tu attends? The Tom Daniels Show. Qu'est-ce que tu attends? Tom Daniels Show. Le spectacle de Tom Daniels.
Welcome back to the Tom Daniels Show. And hey, give it up for my band, Mary Mac, and that incredible version of our show's theme song. That was French, right? Yeah, that was French. Wow, I'm impressed. Mary Mac took our theme song and turned it into a Zydeco dance. Awesome. Mary Mac is the world's most perfect band. Anyway, I was talking about an unusual plan by Senator Robert F. Broussard to rid the state of a deadly water hyacinth invasion. Now, one of Broussard's partners in the plan was the legendary adventurer Frederick Burnham, who was the father of the Boy Scouts of America. The other partner was the rather shady German big game hunter Fritz Duquesne, who spied for Germany during both world wars and would eventually be arrested by the FBI and convicted of espionage in 1941 for controlling a domestic Nazi spy ring. Now, both of these daring men, Burnham and Duquesne, had been ironically assigned to assassinate each other in South Africa during the Second Boer War in the 1890s. So their 20th century partnership was remarkable, to say the least. In other words, they were perfect for Louisiana. Together, they formed a company called the New Food Supply Society and tried to kill two birds with one stone. Now, the idea was to import and turn loose a bunch of wild hippopotamuses from Africa into the swamps of Louisiana and just let nature take its course. Broussard, Burnham, and Duquesne argued that the hippos would eat up all the water hyacinths, and they would provide a significant source of meat for southern hunters. They envisioned the entire Gulf Coast becoming a vast hippo ranch to help deal with America's devastating meat shortage of the time. Hippopotami for Dixie, they promised. River cow bacon, they boasted. So, if you follow the logic, their plan was to enhance the snake and gator-infested waterways of Louisiana by adding the single most deadly land mammal in the world, razor-sharp teeth, 4,500 pounds, 20-mile-per-hour sprints, and a salty attitude. I asked a friend of mine if he thought he could field dress a hippo, and he said it would require much heavier tools than he owned, like maybe a bulldozer and a log truck. Now, with the full support of Theodore Roosevelt and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Broussard introduced H.R. 23621, also known as the American Hippo Bill, in 1910. Despite having strong support from some big lobbyists in Washington, it fell just one vote short of passing. Now, without the support of Congress, Broussard dropped out of the plan, and then Burnham and Duquesne tried to separately continue the project. However, the Mexican Revolution and World War I would eventually divert their attention elsewhere, and the idea was completely forgotten. There would be no hippo for the bayou. So, how did the state of Louisiana deal with the continuing crisis of the water hyacinth? Well, in the 1930s, some guy named McElhenney thought he had the solution. Thank you, everybody. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening. Keep learning.
Continuez à écouter, continuez à apprendre de Tom Daniel Show. Continuez à écouter, continuez à apprendre. Faites une pause dans votre routine habituelle et connectez-vous au Tom Daniel Show. Vous découvrirez le monde des mélodies et des histoires que tu ne connais peut-être pas. Continuez à écouter, continuez à apprendre de Tom Daniel Show. Continuez à écouter, continuez à apprendre de Tom Daniel Show. Qu'est-ce que tu attends? De Tom Daniel Show. Qu'est-ce que tu attends? De Tom Daniel Show. Qu'est-ce que tu attends? Tom Daniel Show. Le spectacle de Tom Daniel.